Hello, my friends. Today I'd like to share something on social anxiety. Somebody asked about this, and it's a really important subject. Mirabelle's joining me again because you are not going to miss any opportunity to make your fire roasted string cheese, are you?
No, no way.
Okay. Here's where I'm going to share some of my past. I won't say I was the king of social anxiety, but I dealt with social anxiety in a major way. I had a real fear of being in front of people. Giving a speech in speech class, terrifying, literally terrifying. I was the proverbial wallflower. I didn't really even go to parties or anything during high school, but if I did, I was that person that just hung out at the periphery of everything and would find any excuse to go for a walk. I like connecting with small amounts of people, but as soon as it was about meeting a stranger or something like that, not comfortable territory for me at all. Now, with any anxiety or fear, you talked about fear doors once, right? And that's a very apt way of putting it, because our fears are like closed doors. Our anxieties are like closed doors, and they keep us from areas of life. If you consider social anxiety, it removes us from one of the coolest things about the world. Now, of course, I think there's a lot of cool things about the world. There's nature, there's campfires, but there's also people. And connecting with people, that is an amazing, amazing thing. Because humans come with so many stories, so many skills they can share, so many ideas. When we have an integrated sense of community, we are so much more powerful than we are alone. So, to connect with other human beings is this huge open door, and it just unveils vast areas of life. I want to start by saying, if you are suffering from social anxiety, don't be hard on yourself. I'll hear people in the older generations looking at our youth and saying, they can't even talk to somebody face to face. It all has to be by text. It's a real thing in our culture. But recognize that there are so many things, especially in today's culture, that put this into us. We're getting separated more and more and more under the illusion of more connection. This is going to create more and more social anxiety in our culture. So freeing yourself of it, it's an amazing thing. Now, I'm not going to say that all of the forest monks that come here, but a lot of the forest monks that come here are dealing with this issue. And one of the adventures that we have is to take people, after they've spent a few months out in the woods, and take them into town. And the idea there is to connect with some people, with some strangers. And not just to do so on a superficial level, but to see if we can really...
Remember that one story of Richard?
Oh yeah? No, tell me the story of Richard.
It was that when are you talking about the same thing where you're trying to go up and compliment?
Oh yes. Oh!
Remember that?
Yes, and he went up to the woman and said, "You have a really nice purse." And she looked at him dirty and ragged from his time in the woods, and probably thought he was wanting to steal her purse, huh? Even though he's the kindest gentleman in the whole world. What I'd like to share then today is that exercise and how it works, and some of the little tricks we can use to reduce some of the fear and get us used to approaching people. This simple idea of approaching strangers and trying to engage with them can really erode our social anxiety because it confronts it head on. Not only do we have to go up to people we don't know and try to communicate with them, but we try to do that on deeper and deeper levels.
Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Here's how it works. You're going to go to a public place, whatever that is for you, whether it's a work party, or it's downtown on some street, or it's at a park. And you're going to go up to some people and talk to them. Now there's multiple levels of this exercise. The first is to look around and find somebody that feels pretty comfortable to approach. Maybe there's an older gentleman who is just sitting on a bench at the park and looking around, and you feel like, okay, I could go up and just say he's got a big, long, awesome beard, and just compliment him on his beard. This is a level 1 approach, right? It's something that's pretty simple. You have an easy out. If you're uncomfortable with the way he looks at you or his response, you can just step away. It's not very engaged, but just doing this will open the door. So that's number 1. Just stepping up to somebody who's easy to approach and giving them a compliment. Right from the beginning, try to make this real. Try to make it be a real compliment. So it could be, again, if you appreciate beards on men and he's got that nice long beard, or he looks like he's in pretty good shape for a guy in his 80s. These are ways that we can kind of make an initial connection. Okay, level 2. Now we're going to approach somebody. You know what? And before I go too far, after I explain these 3 different exercises, I'm going to give you these mind tricks, because I'm just asking you to...
It smells like a s'more.
I'm asking you just to go up to strangers, and you're saying, well, wait, that's the very thing that is really tough for me. So I'll be helping with that, but I want to give these 3 exercises. So number 2, or level 2, is finding somebody that just is a little bit more uncomfortable. Still keep it comfortable, not somebody that appears intimidating or scary to you. And now go up to them and try to engage with them a little bit more deeply. Last time I was in town with some of the forest monks, a woman walked by, and most people would have considered her kind of attractive and younger, so a little bit more uncomfortable for some people to approach, because it was all a bunch of guys here that we were trying this experiment. And I saw that she had a tattoo. And so I asked her to stop, and I said, wow, that tattoo, that really strikes me, because it was a really neat one. And I asked her what the significance was of it. Now we've entered a little bit more deeply into connection with somebody, and that led to actually quite a conversation with the whole group, her and all of us. So that was a slightly deeper entrance. Level 3 has 2 parts. You can choose a comfortable person and go really deep with them, or you can start choosing people that are very uncomfortable for you. Choosing somebody that you're comfortable with, so kind of go back to that really easy person, so that 80-year-old gentleman on the bench that you don't feel scared or intimidated of, and sit down next to him and say, "Sir, what is this all about? This whole thing, life." And probably that is going to lead to quite a conversation. And you could, it could be any deep question that you want to ask. You see somebody that has a huge smile on their face and saying, "Look at that smile. You just look like you're filled with joy. What is it that you do? What's your secret that brings that smile onto your face?" The other part now is finding somebody that is intimidating to you. And that might be somebody that you find very attractive. Here, watch.
I know, I had to lick it off my hands.
It could be somebody that you find very attractive. Could be that big guy with a Harley Davidson leather jacket and a bunch of tattoos. You're going to look around. You're going to find some people that just look a little bit more scary. If someone would be classified as having a mental illness in our culture, often those people are scarier for us to approach. So somebody that's talking to themselves or making strange gestures, maybe that's the person you go up to. So choosing that person that's a little bit more intimidating, and you can start small. You can go up to that person and say, use the compliment thing, or just ask them what they think of the park. You're working up to the point where you can choose people who are intimidating to you, and you can ask them deep things. Now, if you are at all like I was, you'd be hearing these things, these different exercises, and saying, "You know what? Even level 1, no way." Kenton, I am not going there because it's super scary. As soon as I even think about approaching somebody, my heart starts going, and oh my gosh, you've got to see yourself. Your heart starts going.
I'll see myself in the mirror.
Your respiration starts going, and it gets super scary. You could go up and look at yourself if you go right up to the camera, you'll be able to see yourself in the screen.
Wait, I can't. It's weird because I'm looking off to the side if I look off that way.
Yeah. But here's what you do. We've got to get ourselves into a mind state. And there's a couple different ones. This first one, I only recommend using this for a little bit because it kind of alienates you from other people. But I'm bringing it up because it was useful for me in the beginning. And that's that I imagined I was in a zoo, and that the human beings that I saw around me were not humans, but just some kind of animal in the zoo. And it was an interactive zoo. In a way, this made them not into people, but just other creatures. So that gave me an entrance in, and it was very, very helpful for me. Again, that one's not one to stick with because it's a little degrading to other people, and if you're approaching people in that manner, they're going to sense it, and it's not going to go very far. But if you have a certain personality, that might work for you. Another method that works for a lot of people is to... You guys can put more wood on the fire if you want. Sure. Getting cold?
Yeah.
Yeah, or collect more wood and put it on. Another thing that can really work for people is to set yourself up for failure beforehand. This is dealing with expectation. I've talked about this in other videos. If we are expecting a certain thing, wanting, desiring a certain thing, then we are setting ourselves up, usually for disappointment. So there's that person And my anxiety is based on expectation. I want to go up and I want it to be a positive connection. I don't want to be made fun of. I don't want them to get aggressive towards me. I don't want them to put me down. So, so I have all these expectations. Now, if we flip that on its head, we can do something kind of cool. And what we do is we expect the opposite. I look over at that person sitting on the bench and I say, okay, Kenton, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to say something to them. And here's what I expect to happen. I expect that they're going to look at me and go, you loser, what are you doing even looking at me? Why are you breathing my air? Get lost. I really firm that up in my head. I use my imagination and imagine that happening. Okay, now the worst has happened. It's already happened in my mind. And I'm going to go up, I'm going to make my approach, I'm going to say something, and very likely something that is much better than that is going to happen. My encounter is not going to be that negative. And I'm going to be pleasantly surprised. Oh, wow. That was not nearly as bad as I thought it would be. It gets us, in a way, over some of that anxiety right in the beginning. Again, because I've already imagined the worst thing happening. Now, when I was filming this video, I really had a feeling that I had forgotten my favorite mental trick, but for some reason I couldn't remember it. So much for mindfulness, right? So this obviously is a couple days later. You can see it's a winter wonderland, but I wanted to share and interject this into the editing here, my favorite of the mental tricks. And that is what I call people as treasure books. Now, again, we're kind of looking out. See, the problem is that with social anxiety, other people have this certain aura. So what I'm trying to do with these mental tricks, especially the zoo one and this one, is to transform the other people into something else temporarily until I can start to see that they're not as scary and threatening as I thought. Now, with people as treasure books, I realize, as I hinted earlier in this video, that every single person is this storybook. And their story is extremely unique. And it's kind of a cool, magical book in that there's some pages that are available to almost everybody. There's some that have certain locks that are a little bit tougher to get into, and there's some that are locked away very, very carefully and very difficult to get into. So when I see people as a treasure book, I realize that they have all this depth to them. Some of that depth I probably will never see because it's locked too far away, but that actually just adds some mystery and excitement to who they are. And then I say, can I find a way into that book? Can I go up to that stranger and read a little bit of their story? And of course, how I do this is I have to go up and I have to find some way to enter into a conversation. And when I do that, they're going to open their book a little bit for me and show me some parts of it. What you're going to find, who knows? It's amazing. But every single person that you walk by, every single person you see, when you're driving down the road, all those people in the cars, when you look up at a passing jet, every single person inside that jet airplane is one of these books filled with stories and wisdom and ideas and amazing, amazing things. Now when I look at people, they've become something else. They've become this treasure house. And looked at that way, it becomes really, really fun to try to approach people and see if they'll share some of their story with you. So remembering the power of these three different things, that power of surrender, when we let go into giving up and saying the worst has already happened, that can do wonders. It can really just release us from expectation, which is kind of our biggest enemy when we're feeling social anxiety. The zoo, again, that one's only to use a little bit at the beginning if you need an entrance in to this whole concept and it just seems too scary. See if you can just think of of here you're in the zoo with a whole bunch of funny looking upright apes wearing really odd things on their body, and you might be able to get a smile on your face and say, okay, these are some really weird creatures, and I'm just going to go up and compliment one on their odd shirt and see what happens. People as a treasure house, as a treasure book, this one is neat for me because yes, it transforms people, but eventually we can see people, as human beings, but realize that they also are a treasure book. And in that way, you can carry that treasure book one on into all of your relations with people. All right, my friends. Love to you all. Tell me in the comments what you've experienced when it comes to social anxiety. Is it very difficult for you to connect with others? What has worked for you to enter into deeper relationship with the people around you, especially strangers? And if you try some of these things, of course, share with me what they do for you, how they work.